ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another exciting Australian Indian Radio's daily Facebook Live update. And hey, it's a wonderful day out there today, as you can see, and it's the weather is just going to be beautiful. The maximum we have today is 22, mostly sunny. The chance of rain is 0, zills. Yes, and Brisbane area partly cloudy, wind south to southwesterly, 15 to 20 knots, tending south to southeasterly in the morning, then becoming light in the evening. And the fire danger is very low to moderate, but as I've always said and I always maintain, always take care and precautions around fire. Sun protection is recommended from now till about 1:50 p.m. and the UV index is predicted to reach 14. We have some very important messages today because a lot of suburbs around Brisbane have been declared restricted areas as per Queensland Health, and that a little bit later on, but right now just looking at the numbers. So the confirmed cases so far is 1,082 with a recovery of 1,065, recorded deaths at 6, unfortunately. Australia-wide, the numbers are now, as of now, is 16,303 and recovery is 9,758 and deaths are 189. Worldwide, yesterday we were talking about 16, that we were getting close to 17 million. Well, guess what? We are at 17.1 million today. And 10 million recovery with 669,000 deaths that's been recorded. Hi, ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to the show. It is wonderful to have you, and to all our Muslim brothers and sisters, wishing you all the very best for Eid. And here's a special message from a lot of community elders and everyone, and imams from within the Muslim communities.
From all of us at the Alliance of Australian Muslims, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless you and your families and loved ones, to accept your good deeds in the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
كل عام وأنتم بخير. Eid Mubarak. Inshallah, at this time next year, for this Eid, we will be at Jabal Arafat. وتقبل الله منا ومنكم, and peace be with you all.
We still find ourselves in challenging times, but what a blessing it is that we can celebrate and pray together with our family and friends. So I hope you have a wonderful, enjoyable and safe Eid.
On behalf of the Islamic Council of Queensland and all its member organisations, we wish you all a very safe, blessed and happy Eid Mubarak.
It is a time for happiness and a time for joy. This Eid, may your sacrifices, your good actions and prayers be accepted. May Allah Azza wa Jal allow us to continue with momentum individually and institutionally. On behalf of the Alliance of Australian Muslims, Eid and Sa'id.
Eid Adha Mubarak to all. Inshallah, next Eid will be a more peaceful Eid.
Haji Hassan here from the Gold Coast, just wishing everybody an Eid Mubarak for 2020. Keep safe, and we see you all soon, inshallah.
It is indeed an Eid like none other, but inshallah we will pass through this, we will come out of it stronger, and I wish and I pray that you all remain safe, secure with your family and friends. Eid Mubarak once again.
Of course, because of COVID-19, again, we are going to have to celebrate Eid in a very different way. But do take this day as a day of celebration, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and thanking Him for all of the blessings that He has given us. Even though it seems as though we are in a very difficult time, never ever forget that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always with you. Eid Mubarak to you, to your family and to the entire Ummah.
At this difficult time with the COVID-19 pandemic, putting our trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for help and support, I wish to extend to you a happy Eid Mubarak.
كل عام وأنتم بخير. Please stay strong, patient and persevere through these times, and inshallah ta'ala we'll get through this bi'idhnillah ta'ala very soon.
Barak to you all. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the opportunity to celebrate more Eids with our family and friends. Stay safe and enjoy your Eid.
To our wonderful Muslim community here in Australia and all our brothers and sisters around the world, I want to take this opportunity on behalf of the Alliance of Australian Muslims to say to you and to your family, Eid Mubarak. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fill this day with happiness and joy. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy upon us all. It's been challenging, it's been tough. But alhamdulillah, we can continue to celebrate. And the day of Eid is a day of celebration. Not only that we celebrate to see one another, but we celebrate our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and worship to Allah Azza wa Jal. So once again, on behalf of the Alliance of Australian Muslims, we wish you, your family and the entire Muslim community and the entire Muslim world a happy Eid. Eid Mubarak. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
From Australian Indian Radio and Brisbane Indian Times and our team, Eid Mubarak to everyone. It is wonderful. Of course, the responsibility and the responsible manner in which it was declared that everyone, we will be celebrating Eid at home and in small classes and not in the big way as it normally is held. But it is important that we follow the directions at this point in time. So Queensland COVID-19 restriction areas, you'll have to get into our website. There's just far too many for me to be reading out here, but Dr. Janet Yang, Chief Health Officer, believes that it is necessary to publish the following list, and that the list I'm talking about, COVID-19 restricted areas pursuant to the powers under Section 362B of the Public Health 2005 to assist in containing or to respond to the spread of COVID-19 within the community. The direction applies from now till the end of the declared public health emergency unless it is revoked or replaced. The purpose of that direction is to identify Queensland COVID-19 restricted areas for Public Health Direction Aged Care number 8 or its successor, and it came into effect 8 p.m. from the 30th of July. And there's a whole link of suburbs and postcodes that are in that restricted area. So please do get onto our website, our Facebook page, or even Queensland Health's webpage and look at those suburbs and areas where the restrictions are in place, and make sure that we follow those ones or we abide by those, so that we are not contributing or putting other people's life at risk as well. Well, talking about suburbs and areas, so in another light, we're going to be looking at what's actually happening out there, in the property market. And with that, I'd like to welcome to the studios Dr. Esti. Welcome to the show.
Hello again, Umesh. Well, hello, how are you?
I'm very good. Thank you so much. It's wonderful that the new report is out. So first of all, to all our listeners, could you tell us what this report covers?
So, yes, it's very exciting. We've just released our Australia Economic Property Report for 2020. It is titled Balancing on a Tightrope, because that is where we are as a nation. We are all balancing in our daily life. We are all balancing in terms of our economy, our property market, and we are walking that tightrope of, the current situation of COVID-19. So that is the report that has been released, and that's the theme of it. And it covers literally everything, Umesh, that is related to the economy, whether it's the employment rate, confidence levels, inflation, anything related to the construction industry, dwelling approvals, residential construction, everything related to the property market. So what's happening in terms of median house price growth across Australia, the rental market, settled sales, and even demographics in terms of how are we going in terms of population, in terms of net interstate migration, overseas migration, things like that. So it's a very comprehensive report that covers a lot of areas that makes up our economy and our property market.
And rightfully said there, Esti. And looking at the key findings, as you mentioned, that it is quite comprehensive, the whole report. But, any of the key findings that you'd like to discuss today?
Yeah, definitely. Everyone always asks me, what's happening in the property market? Are we going to see a doomsday crash of the property market? And The short answer is that the Australian property market is actually holding on very resilient. So in the past 12 months to the first half of 2020, so that means until the end of June 2020, combined capital cities have held steady, growing by approximately 1%. All combined metro areas by approximately 2.7%, and regional areas, particularly for combined regional areas, is literally our winners here because they grew the most at 3.4% in the past 12 months of the first half of 2020. So as you can hear from what I've just said, Umesh, all of the areas across Australia as a whole, the property market is holding us quite well and it's holding steady.
And that is always the case with the property market, especially here in Australia, as you have mentioned that, we have gone through many different turmoils and ups and downs, but, property has been one medium which has always performed well. And it's always good to see that those kind of reports that are coming. So what's happening in the rental sector?
So yes, rental sector, that's another sector that is definitely getting a lot of attention. Now, one of the main things with the rental market that is a key factor is vacancy rates. So vacancy rates tells you whether or not there's rental demand in a particular area. Now, when COVID-19 hit its peak at approximately April, our vacancy rates as a nation hit 2.6%. Now, that might sound a lot, but that actually means that approximately 98 or 97% of rental properties across Australia are still occupied. So it's still a very high occupancy rate. And if we can go by anything, like you've just said about the property market, how we've gone through so many shocks and tumultuous times, looking at historically, Australia has the pattern that, yes, we do spike up at an event, like, for example, swine flu or Asian flu or GFC or anything like that. We do spike up on the exact month that the shock happened, but it starts to go down again in the 2 months after. So, yes, vacancy rates did peak in April, but it's already starting to come down now in June. So there's still, there's actually some recovery in the rental market at the moment. So that is going to be very, very reassuring to investors who are wondering whether or not now is a good time to enter the property market and actually be investing in property.
And I think, always, there's no better time to invest in property than now. Now means anytime. Whenever it is now for anyone, that's the time to invest in property. That's the right. Now, if just comparing, so, you talked about the investments and, so comparatively, if you're looking at the suburbs, the suburbs and then inner city apartments, how are they comparing?
Look, I mean, it's different in every capital city across Australia. But the message that we do want to say is that at the moment, when you are looking at units and when you are looking at capital cities tend to be a little bit more volatile when it's in a time of crisis or in a time of a shock. And that's because capital cities has a higher reliance on international business, international students, international trade, and the international financial markets. Whereas your metro areas and your regional areas, which is why in this report, regional areas have grown by triple compared to the capital city, is because regional areas are quite insulated from economic shocks. They have their own strong economy and they are less reliant on international trade or international business. But you're right in terms of that, when is it a good time to enter the property market? Well, one of the reasons why the Australian property market is the safest place to invest is because we're always going to need a place to stay. We're always going to need a home. And a lot of Australians still hold dearly to the idea of home ownership and also home ownership as part of, getting your equity and building your wealth for retirement, etc. So, yeah, that's currently what's happening, Umesh.
Yes, that's quite rightfully said that inner cities normally depend upon a lot of international students and international trade and all that. As we have seen lately, we were looking at some of the apartments, and they're very if you look at the return on investment and all the figures, they work out quite well. But the thing is that at the moment they are vacant. So, that's why some of the investors shy away because they said if it was rented, they would have gone for it. But, such is the case at this point in time. In regional areas, and because we do another show from these studios, which is on migration. And there is a lot of points on migration if people are in the regional area. So that could be another reason why, there's a demand for rental growth and everything in the regional areas there as well. So now looking at your reports, you always identify few growth areas, so in this report, are there any hot suburbs or any areas people should be looking at?
Look, I mean, this report is a little bit different. It's more about identifying where we are in the property market at the moment. Like I said, regional areas, and you've also mentioned it, one of the reasons why regional areas are quite strong is because they are made up more of houses. And when you talk about houses, you are talking more normally, they're owner-occupiers. They're not students, they're not wanting to rent, they're actually wanting to live in the area for quite a long time. So regional areas are basically the winners at the moment. A lot of places in regional areas, regional Queensland actually leads when it comes to median house price growth. Regional Queensland has the highest median house price growth in the past 12 months to the first half of 2020 by 8.6%. So go regional Queensland, we are leading the way. And regional areas tend to have a higher housing affordability. The prices in regional areas are usually, at least 40, maybe even 50% lower than capital cities. And the vacancy rates, Umesh, actually in a lot of regional areas are very, very low. I was looking at this yesterday, and some of the regional areas in Victoria and New South Wales, their vacancy rates is 0.5% or 0.8% as of June 2020. So that means if you are wanting to enter a market and there's that certainty and confidence, if you look at regional markets, there's a very high chance, like a 99% chance that your property will be rented. So, if I was to say, in terms of not suburbs, but actual areas, if you are looking to invest to, investigating regional areas could be, the winner right now.
That's a very sound advice there as well. Maybe we're looking at regional areas, for your investment. Because on the figures that you have quoted there. Now, what about our first home buyers and the grants that have been, much talked about? And we have lately seen within the real estate market that the developers who are doing up these new houses have been a bit reluctant to let them out with the other agents as they normally do. And because they are more, lean towards first marketing and selling them themselves. And they have said to us that, they have had a strong inquiry rate in that area.
Oh, definitely. At the moment, when you're talking about first-home buyers, they are really, really well placed to enter the market because you can access the home builder grant. You can access, if you do choose to build, that is, you can access the home builder grant. You can access any of the grants that the state is giving you, so like your first home buyer grant. And of course, at the moment, you have the lowest ever historical low standard variable loan because the RBA has cut its cash rate down to its lowest, and they're very committed to keeping it at that low level until we've reached full employment. And reaching full employment is not going to be, quickly. it's going to be quite a bit of a process until our economy recovers. And so based on all of those, it is one of the best times for first home buyers to enter the market. A lot of mortgage brokers have actually reported that first home buyer activity jumped by about 21% in May 2020, and that is the highest percentage of first home buyers that we've seen since 2013. There's also been a jump of 42% of people who wants to upgrade their homes, Umesh. And again, that's another jump that we haven't seen for a long time. And so there's definitely a lot of movement. And thanks to Home Builder Grant, the residential construction market for new homes have increased by 77%. Now, that doesn't mean that we've recovered yet, because we did plummet quite a bit when it comes to residential construction, but it does help in the recovery, and also for those who are in the residential construction industry to be securing jobs and things like that for the next 6 months until 2021. So every little bit help. And because of all of these instruments that we do have in the market, it is what's keeping us at that balance at the moment throughout COVID-19.
And quite rightfully said there about the residential construction, as when we see that grant that the government put out for renovations. The unfortunate part was that it had to be a sustainable amount, to qualify to get the full benefit out of that package. But once again, it was a package which assisted the construction industry to get people, jobs, and by the same time, people improving their houses. So Esti, once again, thank you so much for coming on the show. So just before I let you go, would you like to just summarize some key points for this finding, for this report?
Yes, definitely. And just to add on to your point there, a summary in this sense is that we are one of the very few, in fact, we are the only country out of all of the G20 countries who are looking at home builder grants, looking at the property market, first home buyers, things like that throughout COVID-19. A lot of the other G20 countries aren't doing that. And that's one of the reasons why our property market is actually quite resilient, and that we are still being able to see some growth in the property market. As a whole, though, Australia is one of the highest countries in terms of GDP spend for stimuluses in relation to COVID-19. We spent approximately 16 to 17% of our GDP, and we are literally just behind Germany. We are the second highest country in the G20 countries, and the stimulus per capita for Australia per person is higher than Canada, US, UK, New Zealand. And because of all of that, that's one of the reasons why our economy, yes, we have had what is technically termed as a recession, but it's not as bad as some of the other developing countries around the world and some of the other developed nations around the world. And therefore, that's why the theme for this report is that we are balancing. It is a tightrope that we're walking to for 2020 to 2021, but there are a lot of government and banking and RBA instruments at play at the moment that is keeping the whole nation and, of course, the property market at balance right now.
And, of course, a tightrope is easier to work on than a loose rope, I must say. So, Dr. Esti, once again, thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's Dr. Esti from PRD Research. Is the senior economist there. Dr. Esti, just before I let you go, if people want to get hold of this report, where and how can they access the report?
Yes, definitely. So it is available on www.prd.com.au, and all you have to do is just follow the links. And I'm sure that, we'll be able to give you the link and put it up on your Facebook page as well.
Once again, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing that information with us.
Thank you for having me.
Bye. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you are. And as I mentioned, PRD has been the leading research, putting out the reports over the years, and the most trusted source for, investors, developers, for anyone, the go-to place for any of this kind of information when, people are making their decision. They normally go to the PRD's research. And if you have been in the industry, you'll know that over the years, that's been the name that everyone's associated with whenever it came to report and research. So right now, let's take a very quick look at what's happening with COVID-19 and what the situation is.
We'll begin this morning in Victoria, an entire state on alert, nervously waiting on today's daily case numbers after the darkest day of the pandemic yet. Overnight, Premier Daniel Andrews held crisis talks with the Prime Minister, with reports even harsher lockdowns could be on the cards. Anger is growing across southeast Queensland as a spike in COVID testing sparked long queues at pop-up clinics. There's a scramble to get across the Queensland border before Greater Sydney is locked out at 1 a.m. tonight, and a new COVID warning for Sydney after infected persons spent almost 9 hours at an inner city bar.
Victoria is on the verge of recording its 10,000th case of COVID-19 in a record-breaking spike. 723 new infections were detected yesterday. 7 days prior, the day Melbourne's mask mandate came into force, that number was 403. Yesterday, 13 more people lost their lives, marking the biggest single day of deaths since the pandemic began. Overnight, we've learned of another death, a man in his 50s, which will form part of today's numbers. It means 106 people have now died in Victoria. Last week, the figure was less than half of that, 49. Right now, the state has more than 5,300 active cases on its radar. Elsewhere in Australia, New South Wales has 698 active cases. Queensland has 11, WA 6, South Australia 4, and 1 each for Tasmania and the ACT in the Northern Territory.
This frightening state of play has Victorians bracing for the possibility of a longer lockdown. Today, Melbourne reporter Christina Hearn leads our coverage. And Chris, how much tougher can restrictions get?
Ali, good morning. A fair bit worse, unfortunately. The Victorian Premier and Prime Minister held crisis talks last night to discuss tougher restrictions. This, however, is not going to come as a huge surprise to Victorians given the sheer number of cases we have experienced each and every day. But yesterday, by far, was our darkest. 723 new cases, 13 deaths, 10 of those aged care residents. It is particularly disheartening given we are at the halfway mark of lockdown 2.0. Reportedly, what was discussed is a New Zealand-style lockdown. So what that means is closing all businesses except for essential services like supermarkets and chemists, and also potentially restricting our movement even further. So what that would mean is you could not leave your immediate neighbourhood for supplies. It comes as the Victorian Premier announces more restrictions on 6 regional areas. So this is Geelong, Colac and the surrounding areas. As of today, they cannot have visitors in their homes. However, they can still go to cafes, restaurants and gyms, something we can't do here in Greater Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire. And community leaders in those regions say that these new restrictions do not go far enough. As of midnight on Sunday, it will be mandatory for all Victorians to wear a mask when they leave their
And the mask has been made mandatory. And as just about a minute ago, the news break that came was that Premier Daniel Andrews is putting a restriction on anyone visiting anyone. So you need to stay at home. You can't even go and visit your relatives or friends, even to that extent. So, when you look at the numbers and what's happened there, so it's quite reasonable for that kind of action to be taken place, and that kind of restrictions to be put in place. Right now in Queensland, let's hear from our Premier.
Good morning, everyone. All right, so I might report on the cases overnight. So we've had 3 new cases. We've had one which is an international arrival who was in hotel quarantine, and we've had 2 others that were a couple from Brisbane who attended the Apollo restaurant in Sydney, came back from Sydney and self-isolated. So that is very good news about what that couple did, and it's a lesson to everyone about how we have to treat this very seriously. Yesterday, Queensland Health carried out more than 6,800 tests, and almost 1,000 of them were in the Metro South area. And the Deputy Premier and the Chief Health Officer will discuss that in a little bit more detail. But can I, from the outset, commend both health and the police for the rapid response that they have been deploying over the last 24 hours. This is exactly the scenario that we have been planning, and the rapid response is exceptional.
And as I mentioned before, that don't forget the new directive that's been put out by Dr. Jeanette, which is the COVID-19 restricted areas pursuant to the powers. And there's quite a number of suburbs and areas, basically a lot of the suburbs in around Brisbane are on that list. Check our website, check our Facebook page, and also go onto the Queensland government's website, and you will find those lists. So this is not the time to be out and about again. Please do take care and always exercise duty of care. Take into account the safety of others as well, and the policing will be hard and tough as well. So much so that even in a lot of local bottle outlets, now you'll have to show your license that you are a local and living around the area before you'll gain entry to those ones. So these kind of measures are being put in place.
So in Queensland we had 3 new cases yesterday, 2 of them in women who'd been down to Victoria, and one of them was the sister of one of those 2 women. We've had no further cases related to that cluster, but it's important that we keep on testing and we keep on being alert to more cases. Then today we've had 3 new cases. 1, a gentleman who recently returned from the United States and was in hotel quarantine, and 2 in a couple who recently returned from Sydney, and they had chosen themselves to go into quarantine in their home. That was an excellent response by those people. Over the last 2 days, we've had 6 new cases. It's been a long time in Queensland since we've really had those sorts of new case numbers. Everyone, if you're unwell, it doesn't matter where you are in Queensland, if you're in South Queensland definitely, but anywhere else, please come forward immediately, get tested and isolate.
So stay home. If you're feeling unwell, don't go out. But if you are, have any symptoms, please go get yourself tested. All the testing centers are listed on the site there as well, where you can get the testing done as well. Well, right now, let's go quickly overseas. First of all, we'll go to Hong Kong, and then we'll cross over to India and see how they're dealing and how they keep coping up with the situations there.
The rest for the offense is under the national security law. Basically, is the subversions, and for the organizing and also the inciting the secession according to the laws. We found that this organization posed in a social media about the establishment of a new parties that will promote the independence of Hong Kong, and they have some declaration for them. Say, for example, they wanted to be establish a Hong Kong country, and also they wanted to use all the means to doing these things. And finally, they wanted to unite all the independent groups in Hong Kong with a view to promote the independence of Hong Kong.
So the update there from Hong Kong, and right now we will go to India and we'll go to Mumbai. As we know, India, with its population, it's very challenging to control coronavirus and to put in place lockdown measures and social distancing. It's just a sheer number of people. So whenever you fly into Mumbai, you will remember that the first sight that you see for miles and miles are those slums. They talked about slums. And how do you control a disease, an outbreak, and how do you practice social distancing in that kind of area, which is very, very challenging? as you can see from the little the gullies or the alleyways, that how do you keep? But even there, the heat testing is taking place. So it's a massive, massive task, to control and implement social distancing in that kind of area. So challenging as it is, they're coping and managing. The numbers are, of course, as we know, staggering because of the sheer size and the sheer volume of people that are there. Right now, let's hear from Daniel Andrews before we go to the upcoming events for this weekend.
I'm announcing from 11:59 p.m. tonight, so essentially from midnight tonight, in the local government areas of Greater Geelong, Surf Coast, Moorabool, Golden Plains, Colac, Otway and the borough of Queenscliff. People will no longer be able to have visitors to their home. There is currently a limit that is now going to 0 from midnight tonight. So you cannot visit friends, they cannot visit you. Hospitality venues will remain open, and I know that may seem counterintuitive, and many things in this virus are, but some of the transmission is household to household. The larger part of it is, of course, in workplaces, but some of the transmission is in households. The second announcement that I want to make is that from 11:59 p.m. on Sunday night, so midnight Sunday night, every single person in regional Victoria, when out of their home, will need to wear a mask or a face covering. In other words, the rules that currently apply and have been so well taken up by, and I'm very proud to think that people across Melbourne and Mitchell Shire have stepped up and are wearing masks. It's very hard to find anybody as you move around the community that isn't wearing a mask, and I'm deeply grateful to each of them for doing that. It's inconvenient, it's challenging, but it's essentially stage 4 for Melbourne, and it's something we can do in regional Victoria without causing significant economic cost.
So there you are. You cannot visit friends, and as from Sunday night, anyone leaving the premises or going outside their house will have to have that mask, including the lady in Bunnings. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now, let's quickly look at the upcoming events before we close off the segment for today. And many times there's so much to talk about that, the time just flies away. Well, right now, let's take a look at all the events happening in Brisbane. And as we know that a lot of functions have been postponed or put on hold for now, taking into account this latest surge which has happened. And there's been a lot of talks that have been happening, especially the gala dinner for India Day Fair has been postponed. And that's once again a very responsible decision taken there by the committee. And of course, all the organizations who are helping and supporting and the Eid which has happened today, and congratulations and Eid Mubarak to all our Muslim brothers and sisters. And Vedanta Center is always holding a lot of online sessions as well, so please do take that on board as well, and if you can join in to those sessions or virtually, and which is wonderful. Mental health launch, Mental Health Matters, they are running a lot of virtual seminars which you can, take advantage of, be part of that and join in any of those mental forums that are happening. They are all very relevant and very timely as well. So, some of these ones are in the future, but please mark your diaries so that, those things can happen. And as we know, Multicultural Queensland Month this year has been cancelled, so has been the awards. As Minister Hinchcliffe said, that money would be better used into more of the community response in overcoming the COVID-19 and better managing this kind of facilities that are needed here. So as I mentioned before, that Gopio Queensland's India Day Fair and the gala dinner that was being planned has been put on hold for right now. By Monday, we will be able to bring to you an update on what's actually going to happen. And don't forget that on 31st July, the annual Varalakshmi Vratam, the new temple that has opened in Kenmore as well. Go check it out. Of course, check first as to how many people are allowed to go before you head off there. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, I'll pan off now because coming on to the weekend, tomorrow we will have the weekend special wrap-up. And don't forget that once again at 10 a.m. tomorrow, we will be back with our update. And Sunday is the break day, so we don't have any updates on Sunday. Some of the Sundays we do have the classical segment late in the afternoon, depending upon the time of response that we have. But until then, it's goodbye from me. We'll see you on the next show. So until next time, be good, but most of all, be safe and be considerate of others.